Minnesota town's entire police force resigns, leaving chief with zero prospects. Goodhue, Minnesota, a small town in the southeastern part of the state, lost its entire police force after the chief and other members of the force handed in their resignations. I think we're a little bit blindsided by it, but we're resilient. We're going to move forward. This has been 3 weeks now. We have 0 applicants, 0 prospects. I've called every PD around for the youngest guys out there getting in the game. Nobody's getting in the game. If you want to keep the PD, and this is something we want to keep going with, something needs to change dramatically and drastically, and it's got to happen now. One Goodhue city council member praised the police force for maintaining law and order in the town of Goodhue. I can probably speak for everyone when I say that they provided excellent safety and security to our community, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And nobody wants to be a cop. So when I talk about what comes next, confidence, people believing in federal government, yeah, at least in this small town, and it's not the only place we're seeing things like this. This is just the most extreme example, the entire police force resigning. We've seen similar things before of mass resignations from various police departments. What happens to a town when they have no cops? Well, we can already see what's happening to LA and New York when the law says you can't arrest these people, when people aren't allowed to defend themselves or their property. But what happens when there's no cops? It's not what people think. People assume if there's no police officers, then you're going to have rampant crime. Actually, I think in small towns, it'll be the inverse. You know why? Because if there's no cops to arrest a criminal at all, the criminals already aren't getting arrested. That means there's no one to arrest the person for defending themselves, which means in small towns with 0 police, people will start arming up. And then if someone comes in to rob their store, they get shot. Then this person says, there's no government. I don't abide by any of that. I don't know what they're talking about. They abandoned us a long time ago. And this leads to social breakdown and decay. But maybe it ultimately leads to more community building, because if there's no cops, people have to go talk to their neighbors to figure out how they're protecting each other.
Yeah, I think becoming a cop through necessity kind of is more noble than doing it for a paycheck. Doing it because we truly need protection, and then calling the greatest among us to protect is like, that's a calling. Yeah,
It's important to note the population of this city, it is a city, is only 1,176.
Did you see how many cops resigned?
Was it like 5?
It was probably 5.
Yeah.
You know, when they said the entire police force is like 5.
Yeah. But I mean, they still resigned. What did they resign for?
I don't think it says.
So how do you feel about the law that's being passed in Chicago or Illinois where illegal immigrants can actually become police officers now?
First I've heard of it.
There's nothing wrong with illegal. Yeah. Well, illegal. Illegal immigrants should not.
Low pay and competition from larger cities was a big component.
So they're getting jobs in other cities. They're getting paid more, going to bigger cities.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
What's this law you mentioned in Chicago? Do you know what the name of it is or anything?
In Illinois, it's being passed here in shortly. I think it's November. If you are an illegal immigrant, you can also be a police officer.
Oh, yes, that's right.
That's J.B. Pritzker's new law.
Okay, this is from
non-citizen law enforcement.
Yeah. So should we fill Minnesota's town with 5 illegal immigrants?
Maybe
That's what they'll do.
Not all at once, if you can help it. Maybe introduce one at a time and let them get socialized.
And I think that people should, be in the United States legally before they start working for the United States
could
government.
you go to...
I feel like that's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, could you go to any country in the world and just become a police officer tomorrow?
Confident that's a no.
It could be a way to earn
So why do we allow it?
No, I don't know about that either. I don't think we should. I honestly I'm super for
Point being
really,
is, are we
really,
this desperate, right? Are police officers leaving the police force in record numbers?
If I understand correctly, I mean I don't have any data on it, but that's what it seems like.
This is a House Bill 3751. In case people want to look into it. I wonder about letting people ways for people to earn citizenship. And if joining military. A lot of
they do that.
You can do that by joining the military, and I think the military is one thing, but just coming to the United States and joining a civilian police force, I think, is different.
Yeah,
Right.
I've never heard up to this point that would function, but maybe it would be a good way to.
You can buy citizenship.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that people do is you don't need to be an American citizen to start a company in the United States. Mm-hmm. So they'll start a company, then they'll hire themselves and use that as justification for coming here. There's also economic visas where it's if you have a certain amount of money invested, then you get to stay in the country.
I have no problem with people come to the U.S. that are looking to improve their situation and start a business or whatever. It's like that's what I mean. It's one of the wonderful things about the United States is we've always been open to people that want to come and want to be free and take advantage of the fact that we are a mostly free country. The problem is when it's like, oh, we're just going to have people that we're going to allow people to come in. And then as soon as you get here, we're going to get you onto some kind of government, subsidies or government program or something. That's the bad thing. So.
Before American citizens.
Yeah, Lily Tam.
No, just at all. Like if you're here illegally, you shouldn't be getting government services.
But they are getting it before American citizens.
Yeah, true, but they shouldn't be getting it at all. Not about. I don't think that there's a before U.S. citizens kind of thing in that. I don't think if you're here illegally, you shouldn't be getting
100% agreed.
Like unemployment and stuff like that.
Yeah, you shouldn't be getting those things you don't need. I understand there are people like, oh, if someone's here, they're paying taxes, etc. I get it. That is true, but to me, it's just not convincing. It's like if you're here illegally, you shouldn't get free services from the government beyond the immediate stuff that everyone else gets. Like if you show up at a hospital and you need emergency care, that shouldn't mean that you get sent to the police and get sent out of the country. If you need the police to help you, the police shouldn't automatically wrap you up like the regular beat cops. But there's a whole lot of DHS out there, and they do a whole lot of messing with your average people when they could be looking for people that have, skipped their hearings for whatever they call it when they come to the country or whatever. So,
I wonder what percentage of illegal immigrants are actually like superheroes that we're better off having in this country. Well,
superheroes are not real.
Not real superhero magic, but like. People that are like superhuman intelligence, like very, very top of the level.
They would have
humans.
came here legally.
Yeah, that's
they have a brain to come here legally.
They're probably well off,
in my opinion,
successful in their own country, and then they buy a private jet to fly in and get a special class visa.
One of the bad things about people that come to the United States, the people like that come to the United States, if they're successful, people that are coming to the U.S. from under, people from countries that have lower economic, output and stuff like that, the people that are successful, they're needed in those countries. So if you're like a doctor in somewhere in Africa and you're a good doctor in the major city in whatever African country you're talking about, and you leave to come to the U.S., that's better for you. But there's a lot of people in Africa that were relying on you being the good doctor in town, taking care of them. So it's a double-edged sword when you're like, oh, we want to accept good people that can contribute to our society. If you're taking them from third world country, which they have every reason to want to get out of there, I get it. But if you're taking from third world countries, those people are the ones that are the most necessary to help build those countries that they're coming from. So it's just a struggle idea that people need to think about when it comes to immigration.
Causing brain drain on other countries.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely, you could argue that it's in our national defense to have the best brains. Damn be the consequences, but I get what you're saying. We're a holistic world, and we should support other nations as well.
Yeah, I mean, my grandparents came here the legal way. I mean, they weren't doctors or anything, but they came to this country for a better life. And back in the 70s. And they were like, what do I got to do to be a U.S. citizen? What I got to do? Just tell me what I got to do. And they did it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. They were normal people. They did it. They became citizens. They raised their families. They came here, So I'm not saying there's no good people in that bunch that are coming here illegally, but I'm also not saying a majority of them are probably the rock stars that you're talking about.
I think that makes sense because the super, super phenomenal humans will probably figure out how to get here legally.
Of course, because they're not going to want to go across the Rio Grande when they have all these skills. They're going to want to be like, hey, how do I come here so I can, because I got all these skills. And we'll be like, absolutely, like, come on over. If you're trying to smuggle kids across the border, you're probably not the person that should be here.
And if you're one of those kids, it basically doesn't even matter. If you're like a 16-year-old, but you're like a super genius and you're getting smuggled across the border, like, that's not, I don't know.
Yeah, it's law.
It's a tangent.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
The cop thing in New York, I feel like, man, dude, they've already got non-citizen voting in parts of California and New York. That's it.
And Chicago.
Global citizen, one world government, whatever you want.
Do you think
Whatever
there's
you wanna
value to
call it.
letting people earn citizenship through serving in like civil, like police and fire department?
No. Fire department, maybe, not law enforcement. Law enforcement, I think you've got to be a citizen.
Yeah.
Fire department, though, I can respect that and say, okay, we'll put you on the fire department or something like that. But the problem is there are people here who want to be firefighters and get paid to do it.
Yeah.
There's huge wait lists. It's very difficult in big cities to get that job. It's a good job.
I guess in situations like what we got in Minnesota where they can't hire a police force, like would it be reasonable to hire?
No.
Yeah.
To have a non-citizen enforce the law, that's dramatic erosion of your country, your
Yeah.
social standards, your law. Yeah. A guy putting out fires is totally different. you know?
Right, they're saving people.
I mean, yeah, and just putting fires out.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
need to speak English or know American doctrine to put out a fire.
You do.
You probably should know.
you just need to know how to
should
use
at
a
least
hose.
speak-
Probably.
You should at least
No,
speak
you
the
need to
same
be able to
language as the
communicate
rest of the
with
team.
with like the lieutenant or captain on scene who's instructing people on what to do to put the fire
Yeah, you
out.
got to speak English.
You're
for
also
sure.
being dispatched.
Well, you just said you didn't have to.
No, you don't need to know American doctrine to put out a fire. That's a universal language. Get the hose.
Buckets. Yeah. I mean, there's 5 people.
Bucket
We just
brigade.
need 5 firefighters for this town. We got this. I think
There you go.
we can cover this police force, just this table.
I think we see a lot of this stuff. Cops resigning because of what happens. I mean, it's Minnesota. I wouldn't be surprised if a component of this people are resigning because of what happened to Tao Tao.
Oh.
The cop who was simply present while George Floyd was killed got he got what 5 years. Mm-hmm. So who wants to be a cop?
Nobody.
Right.
Especially when you're, I have family members that were and are cops in Chicago, and during the riots, during the BLM stuff, they got bricks thrown at their foreheads, and they were the same cops that were playing basketball with the kids in the inner communities. So they're like, why am I doing this anymore? Like, I am a good cop. I don't need bricks thrown at my head and then no support from our chief. I'm out. Bye.
You guys listening, anybody want to be a cop? Put a 2 in the chat if you want to be a cop.
And then put a 9 if you don't want to be a cop.
Yeah, put a 9 if you're not interested.
Like, there's got to be an alternative number. You say 2.
There's gotta be,
People
like,
put 1, I guess.
People got to want to be cops to be a cop. Like, you got to have faith in the system. Be like, I love this city so much that I want to make it safe.
That's that's the real like caustic and bad thing about the ACAB sentiment. It's not just that like, you have issues with the existing cops. If your whole community has the attitude that all cops are bastards, who wants to help? Who wants to be a cop? And the places that have the people that are screaming ACAB the most are places that need the cops the worst.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.